this is Drugs of Learning webinar, the second edition of our Healthcare Business Masterclass series. And we have Stanley Ezekobe, who is the Group Head of Tax at Nest Oil. Yes, so he was going into what to expect from the masterclass, into the objectives. And now he's talking about who a CFO is, because before you think like a CFO, you need to know exactly a CFO is so that you can step into those shoes easily and wear the thinking cap of a CFO. Great. So please confirm that you can still hear me. So I'm going to be asking intermittently so that we don't lose anybody. Yes, thank you very much for the confirmation. Right, so we are just going to dive right back in. Thank you so much. So, Mr. Stanley, you have the floor.
Thank you, Pharmacist Onyinye. It was a very healthy break, if I must say, since everything we're doing here is health. Yeah, I was talking about the CFO, since we're here to think like a CFO. And I said that the CFO is the Chief Finance Officer, that he is the business analyst, he is the financial curator, he is the one that assists the business owner to point the business owner in the direction that affects finances. And in a lot of instances, especially for small businesses, the CFO, if the business owner actually doubles as the CFO. And in some cases, he is also HR because he's just trying to survive a small business. And we also said that the businesses we're talking about cost across both medium and small-sized hospitals, medium and small-sized pharmacies, laboratories, even physiotherapists who work remotely, and those who actually have, standing offices. So finance is the lifeblood of every business. It is finance that makes the business keep running. It helps the business to ensure that whatever challenges the business faces, it's able to overcome and mitigate it. So the CFO is somebody who should have some level of knowledge and experience in finance matters. And from finance, we mean finance control, be it understanding how insurance works, how tax and regulatory matters with the government, because that is a big deal, where no matter how skilled you are in your profession, if you do not understand the laws of the land, your business can be closed without your permission. Again, you have so many other areas of finance like investment, how you look for where to put excess fund for your business, or when you need funding to be able to scale up your business, where you're able to get cheaper and affordable funding. That's what the finance officer, the chief finance officer, does. The CFO is also the finance brain that ensures that all the income generating assets of the business are kept properly and maintained in a way that they can continue to earn revenue for the business for as long as possible. The CFO is also the best in financial planning. And like I said earlier, you have to find a way to see the future in business. And the best way to see the future in business is to collect data. And what the CFO does is that the CFO works a lot with data. The CFO doesn't just allow customers come into the business and go. The CFO makes sure that for every customer who comes into his business, he gets enough data on that customer to make sure that that customer comes again and does a repeat sale, so that the more the customer comes, the more the revenue of the business continues to grow till he has a very good loyal customer base, and that grows his business for survival. So we go from who a CFO is to what a CFO does and what a CFO doesn't do, why a CFO does what he does, and how a CFO thinks. So we'll start with, what does a CFO think about? And we have already said that a CFO is someone who is knowledgeable in finance matters and who is responsible to make sure that the business continues to make money, manages efficiently the cost that it incurs, has a huge healthy level of profit every year, and is able to reinvest that profit into its business to make sure that the business continues to grow and scale. So what does the CFO think about? the first thing the CFO will continue to think about is how do I increase my revenue every month, every year, every day. So the CFO doesn't sleep at night because he already has a target every time. It might be a week, it might be a month, to be able to earn a certain level of revenue. And why the CFO is thinking about that revenue is because that revenue is expected to solve important problems for the business. Some of those problems are short term, while others are long and final term. So the CFO will ensure that whatever revenues are coming in from the current customers, he is able to analyze those customers properly. He is able to see through their buying decisions. And through understanding their buying decisions, he is also able to make sure that the revenue from those individual or those specific customers continues to increase. Again, in business, you cannot do business without giving credits. You cannot do business without people owing you. But what the CFO does is to make sure that in the process of making sales for your business, whether you own a pharmacy or whether you own a lab, a hospital, CFO makes sure that for every customer, no matter how low you are, before a CFO will give you credit, that is, provide service without collecting payment instantly, the CFO would be sure that you have a very healthy credit rating towards the business. That means you have been perhaps patronizing that business for way too long, and how much you have generated for the business in the past is adequate enough to give you that leeway of credit. So the CFO makes sure that while he's making money from a specific customer base, he also ensures that when he provides credit, that credit must be monitored to make sure that it doesn't go bad, it doesn't go out of control. Again, in order to increase the revenue of a business, the CFO thinks about increasing the market share. So it's not enough to have existing customers. Just like we have in most of our roadside or neighborhood pharmacies, it's easy for that business owner to rely solely on the customers that you have within that jurisdiction, especially if you are a content person and year on year, what profits you earn is enough to get you by with your family. Then you feel, yes, I think my business is doing well. But all you need in an environment like ours is to just have a change in political leadership or a change in laws, a change in some environmental control, and then you find your business struggling. So it's always important for a CFO to think of increasing the market share, encouraging market growth for his business. And how does a CFO do that? By thinking. You think about what you have to offer. And you have to think about the people that service offering are. They may not be in your neighborhood, and you have to think about how you get in touch with them. The good news is that we are now in a telecommunication-based world where you can be in Ogudu and provide services to somebody in California. Yeah. So that's what the CFO thinks about. He thinks about how he can provide services to everybody in every part of the world without necessarily having to physically be in front of the people. And that speaks to how we now have teleconference medical doctors, where you can, by teleconference, get a specialist doctor who is in some other part of the world to be able to provide health services, specialist health services to another part of the world, or to another team of doctors performing the surgery in another part of the world. I've seen that for myself. So these are some of the things that would have come from the thinking of people like the CFO, because they want to grow the revenue of the business, and the only way to do it is to grow the market share. Again, when you think CFO, you think somebody who anticipates challenges, anticipates problems, and is already ready with different options on how to solve those problems. And how a CFO is able to achieve this is because he is always working with empirical, verifiable information. The CFO has data, internally generated data from customers, from vendors who we have purchased items from, and he also generates data from external sources, from competition, from what other pharmacies are doing, where other hospitals buy their products from. And we always encourage them to come to drugstore, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Absolutely. So that is what a CFO thinks about. A CFO also always think about cost management. Where there's an opportunity to reduce cost, there a CFO will be. So a CFO does that pari passu with cash management because cash is king. And cash can only be generated by the revenue that the customers bring. And that revenue has to be protected because that revenue is going to both pay salaries, pay overhead, buy capital assets that the business is going to need over a long period of time, as well as carry out the day-to-day working capital needs of the business. So the CFO is always thinking of cash management because whatever funding is available to the CFO, he has to spread thin across all the areas we have just mentioned. Equally important, what the CFO thinks is where to source funding, because at times the business owner will identify future business opportunity or current opportunities and is eager to take such opportunity, but is hampered by the availability of funding. So what the CFO is always thinking about is where I can get this fund, how quickly I can get it, and how cheap the fund can be. Again, the CFO doesn't rest till he is able to do a forecast of all of these things we have mentioned. The CFO will forecast the revenue to be sure that in the next month or in the next year or in the next 5 years, this is how I expect to earn money. And the CFO does this with all the practicality in the world. For example, some CFOs will go to greater detail of putting the names of the companies that are going to come and buy in every year and the number of times they expect those companies to come and buy, those individual customers to come and buy. So what the CFO does and what keeps the CFO awake at night is checking to confirm if those customers came to buy in the quantity that has been anticipated. And if the CFO notices that what the expectation is different from the reality, he starts to take immediate action and he starts to take proactive and creative action in order to make sure that that revenue that was budgeted for, it's going to be available for the business. I don't know if our participants have any. Oh, yeah, exactly.
All right, so we can go ahead. So as we go on, if you have questions or you have any real life question or situation you want clarity on, please feel free to share in the question and answer box. And all right, so let's go on, please.
Okay. So we just talked about what a CFO does and who a CFO is. So it's important we should talk about why we should think like a CFO. After all, there has to be some reason why the CFO is thinking the way he's thinking. And one primary reason the CFO thinks the way he or she does is because business thrives on decision making. Life in itself thrives on decision making because the quality of the life you have today is based on the aggregation of your past decisions and luck. But luck aside, what the CFO does is to make sure that he gathers the data, like I said. With the data and information that is available, he is able to predict the future. After he predicts the future, he is able to see the potential challenges to whatever business plans or business strategies or business structures that he has put in place. And then after that is done, what you need to consider is monitoring, performance reviews, and spot checks. So what the CFO does is he has structured periods where we check what the budget, the expectation should be versus what the business is doing online real time. I would say that again, online real time. Because if you don't do it online real time, it's a wasted effort. Because the risk you will be trying to mitigate or avoid would have already happened. So online real time, the CFO is always looking at the data, checking what's happening, comparing it with what is supposed to be, and understanding the reasons why he is not hitting the bull's eye. Again, why the CFO is thinking that way is because it's easy to look at short-run solutions, such short-run achievements, without considering what happens at the end of the day. There are a lot of businesses that, we will use utilities as an example. A lot of businesses believe that they cannot acquire some form of stable, constant, and cheaper source of electricity. And as a result, they rely on the traditional power generation from the transmission company, as well as the use of the portable generators. But we have seen that in the past few years, the Nigerian economy, which is where we are, has taken a hit in those two areas, the electricity tariff and the fuel cost. Businesses, the profits that they make are halved by just this line item, this cost item. But some CFOs have taken the big bites and done analysis based on data to understand that the cost that you trickle and you incur marginally every day or every week on these two cost items translates to a huge chunk at the end of the day. But what good CFO would do, the good CFO will be thinking about, to be looking at the data that relates to how much he or she has spent in the previous year, for example, on that cost item, and try to understand how we can drive that cost down, even though it means incurring more of that cost in the first year, but enjoying the benefit for it for the next 10 years. So that is what a CFO does. He thinks long-term, financially rewarding long-term choices. So imagine yourself as a CFO looking at your business, looking at all the cost items or the expense items in your records, and being able to take them maybe one item in a week or one item in a day, and analyze it to say, how can I spend smarter? How can I spend better in order to have a positive profit margin? I've mentioned that why a CFO thinks the way he thinks or she thinks is because it needs to increase sales. And sales is everything to the business. You can speak to sales, don't you? Yeah. So the CFO thinks sales, and once you think sales, you must think the cash cycle. Because if you are selling and fund is not hitting your bank account, money is not getting into your cash till, then you're not doing business, you're doing a charity. Because money today has investable future than money tomorrow. So the cash that is made available to you by your customers today has some interest or earning capacity to it. So healthcare business owners are normally known to be empathic. They are normally known to be emotional because they are providing life-saving services. But always remember that it's a business. So as you provide these services, make sure that you have a healthy balance to how much actual cash gets back into your business as quickly as possible. And that leads us to the point about maximizing returns on every naira that you spend and cut waste. How do CFOs think outside the box to make sure that they maximize returns? I'll give you a very classy example of the way CFOs think. A CFO, a regular CFO, will look at all the vendors of his or her business, and while I buy from you, I will make sure you're my customer. So for every vendor that is registered in your business, A CFO will make sure he maximizes return on every naira that he spends on a vendor business. So, for example, if drug stock purchases from, give me an example. Where does just any example?
That drugstore purchases from
Yeah.
of our clients.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm happy to share, to give examples of our clients.
Yeah.
Our clients, any of our clients on the call, so I'll advertise the business. Is Nesfield, okay, an example of our clients, a Medium's Pharmacy.
Medium's Pharmacy.
They buy from us.
Okay, they buy from you.
Yes.
So, and they are a pharmacy.
Yes.
So, as Media Pharmacy buys from drug stock, Media Pharmacy needs to find a way for drug stock to be its customer as well. So, it's going to be a tough sell because the large chunk of what it sells is purchased from drug stock. However, Media Pharmacy now has to think outside the box to find a way to build a relationship with drug stock that transcends just it buying from drug stock. It might be some after sales or after purchasing services. It might be some reviews around trend analysis in the industry that might be of interest to drug stock. It can be anything. And what media, see, the promo is too much now.
Mediums.
Exactly. And what mediums need to do is find out what's important to drug stock. What are the pain points to drug stock? What would drug stock like to have that it currently doesn't have? And how can it provide that? And that way, you would find that drug stock is even able to provide some unusual discounts to such an organization because there is value being created both ways. The CFO thinks the way he does or she does, because like I mentioned, the CFO doubles as the HR specialist because the CFO is always looking for people, technical people, knowledgeable people to fill the different roles in the business. In businesses that are still small scale, the CFO is typically the business owner and the HR personnel because you form the business, you manage the finances, and you look for the personnel. But in medium-sized and bigger and larger companies like, say, drug stock, I'm sure we have some of these roles differentiated. But for our teaming audience, I'm sure that a larger populace of them would fall in the smaller and medium-sized category, where the roles are concentrated in one person. So what the CFO thinks about is, if Pharmacist Onyinye gets a directorship at the World Health Organization in Geneva, somebody needs to fill her role immediately. If not, there will be a problem with the 3.0 masterclass of this edition. So what the CFO is always thinking about is succession planning. Who can replace the current workforce at every point in time to make sure that sales is not impacted, cost management is not impacted, and all the other areas of financial control. So the CFO is always thinking. I want to assume that the CFO always has a headache because there's so much to think about. And one major area that gives the CFO sleepless nights is sourcing for funds. Fund. Money rules the world. And when the CFO is sourcing for funds, it's because the business owner, like I said, has identified an opportunity to earn more revenue, expand his business or her business. So the CFO is proactive because it's not at the point when the money is needed, you should start to look for it. So what the CFO thinks about on time is where to get affordable, cheaper financing. Some business owners go for debt, which is loans. They can get loans from family at the very granular level, or you can get from a financial institution. But you have to be very, very particular about your forecast, your seeing into the future. Because when you take a loan, you are mortgaging a part of your life or a part of your business. So before you take a loan, you must do your forecast analysis to be able to see where the money to repay the loan will come from, where the money to repay the interest and the capital will come from. And again, you must also be critical about the timing of when money will come so that you can pay your loans on time. If you have done your review and you feel that there are challenges with getting loan from a financial institution and you have no close friends or relative to borrow from in the short run, you may have to resort to equity, which is, in this part of the world, a lot of business owners do not encourage equity financing because we want to be in charge. We want to own our business and, if possible, put our sons at the back of it. But I assure you that businesses always thrive on partnerships. Businesses always build faster based on cooperation. So equity funding should not be discouraged. In fact, it's one of the most stable sources of funding. The only difference is that as the business improves, as the business is profitable, you share that profit with your equity partners. And the good news again is that you can go into some contractual agreement at the beginning of the business when you're bringing in your equity partner to make sure that when the business scales up to a certain level, you can pay off your equity partner and own your business again. I'll give you an example that is not health related, but it's very topical and it's very interesting. Most of us on the call or this session, we know Maven Records. We know Maven Records. And you'll be amazed that at the start of Maven Records was not completely owned by who we know today to own it. And he had to take some form of financing in order to execute his idea of generating revenue through Maven Records. And what did he do? He went to a finance institution to get a loan. And when he went there, he realized that the interest rates were cutthroat and the terms and conditions were such that if you don't pay at a certain time, the interest is doubled, compounded, and you might find yourself paying everything the business makes to the loan shark. So he decided to go for equity financing and reached out to a senior mentor who had the funding, and also because the senior mentor preferred to go with equity financing than loan. And why did the senior mentor prefer the equity financing? Because the senior mentor had seen that with what you have done with Mohits, it is only having into the future and seeing that you're going to make money with it. And I want a share of that money. I don't just want to give you a loan and collect interest. Because if the business does so well, you might pay my loan as quickly as possible. So he goes into the equity financing with the mentor, gets the funding he needs, signs the papers to say that after 5 years, if I make enough money, I'll pay you back. And they have an agreement. And after the agreed timeline, when Tiwa Savage and Korodu Bello had sung their songs and sang their songs, he was able to refund the equity financing with whatever dividends that would have accrued during the period that the equity shareholding was in place. And everybody is happy. And today the business is what it is. So healthcare businesses should not be shy of seeking finance knowledge first and foremost, because it's the knowledge you have that would drive the decisions that you take. Yeah. Internal financing is the most common form of financing, but you have to have the finance internally to be able to use it. And it can only border on proper financial management and control. The more profit you make every year, the more you're able to finance internally. And then venture capital. Venture capitals is what we know these days to be a semi form of loan, but a more empathic form of loan, where venture capital, where people who have made it in the business world and are looking for smaller businesses to help grow, boost, are able to provide such capital to. Some of us know the Tony Elumelu Foundation, that is very renowned for providing such venture capital funds. And there are so many of them springing across the country. So it's important for healthcare business owners to tap into some of these things to be able to build.
All right, so we have some questions. I don't know, do you want to take a few questions or do you want to complete the the slides and then we take questions, or you want to take one or two now?
I would say grab it while it's hot. So let's have one or two questions now before we go on.
I'll just go to the first one. So Cole is asking, what is the best vehicle to stop profits apart from reinvesting it in the business? I mean, if the outlet has reached peak performance based on current indices, that's from Millicent Cole.
Okay.
So what is the best vehicle? Do you have something like this later on in the slides that will address this question, or?
And I would say if we come across that later on the slide, we could just reference it and go ahead so that we can do customer first for Innocent.
All right. So
Yeah.
what's the best vehicle to stop profits apart from investing it in the business when the business has reached peak performance?
Thank you, Innocent, and that's a very useful question. It's to, like I said, finance knowledge. Know the different places you can put money. Know the different safe places you can put money. We're not talking CBEX here. We're talking of places that are registered by government and are being regulated by the right kind of, government agencies. The most simple one is the money market fund. The money market fund is a fund where investment institutions have been able to aggregate different business opportunities and put them in a single portfolio for investors to be able to take advantage of. So currently, the money market rate is at 20.83% as of today. Meaning that if you have 1 million naira excess fund and you put it in money market today, you will get extra 20%, which is 238,000 naira per annum in a year, for example. And you can imagine the compounding effect, or you can imagine if it's a bigger base. So that's just money market. We also know treasury bills, we know treasury certificates, but those ones come up when the government issues them. But the one that you can access immediately after this session is the money market fund. And if I am to do free adverts for two very renowned and consistent institutions, I recommend AXA Mansard and I recommend Stanbic IBTC Money Market Fund. Then if you go to commodities, if you have the knowledge of people who deal in the commodities market, that deal in gold, that deal in iron ore, that deal in tin. So there are individuals who also aggregate these commodities and do the export. And there's an investment base for it in the commodities market where people buy gold and save. And as the price of gold continues to go, you continue to build your interest. But that will be for larger sums of funding. But in the short run, these ones that I've recommended will be the way to go. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so we have about 4 questions, but I'll just take the second one and then we'll go on with the session.
Yeah.
Can you share with the audience the type of data or information of the clients in a small pharmacy that the CFO should be looking for to keep these clients in order to grow the business? So what sort of data or information, what sort of clients data or information should the CFO in a small pharmacy look out for or collect to keep clients in business?
Very, 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 very grateful for that question. Think about it. Someone walks into your store to buy something. That means a problem brought me to your pharmacy. So the first thing I need to take detail of is who you are and how I can reach you again, which is your phone number. If it's possible, you live around, address, so that I know that it's a catchment area where, if possible, I can even deliver to you. What brought you here? The problem that brought you here. So the particular drugs that were purchased by you. So it's possible that that customer has an ongoing ailment, which means you have to continue buying that drug. So if you have details of the drugs that were purchased, And because pharmacists are not expected to, they are not chemists who just dispense. They're supposed to engage the customer. So when you engage the customer, you would know whether it's a long-term ailment or whether it's just a short-term solution that is being required. You will know whether it's an errand, whether the person buying is even was sent by somebody. And you now know that it's that person's detail that you need. Then again, you also need to find out the kind of drugs that work with what was purchased by that customer. So at times somebody comes to buy a malaria tablet, not knowing that it goes with Panadol, it goes with some vitamin B core and some of those other things. So once you have data around, the customer comes to buy this because the business owner might not be in the store all the time. So for every drug, these are the ancillary drugs to recommend. So that's the kind of data you want to also have. So that I come here coming to buy one thing and I end up buying 10. So have data around a particular purchase and other things that can come with that purchase. That's another form of data. Again, data you might want to look at is in the particular community where the pharmacy is based. Are there topical issues in that community that might drive the purchase of certain kinds of drugs? For example, if you live in a community that is swampy, affected by drainage issues, and as a result, you have a flux of mosquitoes, you naturally expect to have malaria in that community. So you stock the pharmacy with that and have that data and continue to monitor the data as people come in for malaria. And if people are not coming in, perhaps they are going to another shop because the price is a little lower, or because the pharmacist is as friendly as Onyinye, and so on. I hope I've answered your question.
Yes, yes, and it's interesting that you mentioned all of this data because again, this is not free advert because Kilometer is our supporter, like all of this is courtesy Kilometer. But yeah, all of this data, it's something that we as doctors we already saw coming. So apart from the accounts session that we'll have, the demo we'll have for the accounts feature of Kilometer later on. Kilometer also helps pharmacies or helps healthcare providers to capture all of this data. So when a customer walks in and all of these things, the ailments, their names, their phone numbers, you can capture it easily. And it also helps, I'm going to say like a medical jargon, but it helps continuity of care, like you said, because the healthcare, the owner may not be there or they may not be around at the time. But when you're able to capture all of this data, you're able to collate it thanks to Kilometer, whoever is on shift, the morning shift pharmacist, for example, can easily
know what to do,
know where to start from,
know what to say.
Exactly, because it's already there, it's already documented.
Absolutely.
So all of that data, Kilometer also helps to capture. So thank you very much for that question, Aso Moses. So there are questions, but I think we should just go on with the sessions.
Yes. I'm actually eager to go into what a CFO does because after thinking, the next level is doing. In my former life, we say, do more, feel better. The more you do, the less depression you would have. So a CFO does a lot. A CFO in larger organizations, you will even find a CFO to be the first to come to the office and one of the last to go because he has a lot to do. She has a lot to do. So one of the first things the CFO does is the CFO tries to, like I said, see into the future. So you've already identified some of the things to expect in the future. You are now building what we call contingencies in order to make sure that whatever happens in the future, you are able to react properly. And one of those major contingencies that the CFO builds is the financial model. And the financial model is simply saying, if I make 1 million, this is how I will be able to spend it. This is how I will be able to invest it. If I make 500,000, this is how I would run the business, and this is what I will have for investment. If I make only 200,000, this is the impact to the business, and so on and so forth, in such a way that the CFO is able to even say, if I'm not able to make a certain amount of money, the business will die by a certain date. So building the contingencies to say, this is the option I have to be able to run this business. Model one, if I monitor the business and I see that model one is not working or giving me the result, just like a football coach, I switch to model two. But before you switch, you must own all the plans. You must understand the context and the content of all the plans to be able to react properly to each plan and to know who is manning certain areas of each plan. So that's what a CFO does on a day-to-day. Identifying the uncertainty, building the structures to make sure he's able to react flexibly to whatever the outcomes are. One major tool, we'll be talking about tools later, that the CFO uses is the budget. The budget goes hand in hand with the financial model. Some people even use the terms interchangeably. So the CFO is the one to, first of all, in building a budget, you must understand all the factors that go into that budget. And once you've understood the factors, it's easy to build the budget. The hard part of the budget is implementing it. Because if you've promised that you are going to buy only 10 toilet rolls in a month for the business, and you suddenly realize that 2 weeks to the end of the month, you just have 2 left, it means that what is occurring in the reality is different from what's in the budget. And if there's no close monitoring, you will not be able to make sure that what you have planned is what's occurring. And more importantly, when there's a variance or a difference, you should be able to investigate to understand why 8 toilet rolls were used. Did you have a party in the office? Or are ladies using it to clean makeup? Or are guys using it for handkerchief? So you need to understand what's happening so that you can take control of the finance process. We've talked about finance management and control earlier. That is like the crux of the CFO's role. Because within finance control, you first of all have what we call finance records. I don't want to use the technical name. I will call it records, not finance reporting or strategic finance management. No, records, just like Innocent asked. Records, you must be able to take charge of the records. And the record starts from when the customer walks into your store, or when you want to buy from the vendor, and when you're already checking the different vendors available and where their price lists are to be able to know who to buy from. Finance control, like I said, also borders on what the government expects from you as a business. Does the government expect you to pay certain taxes? Are you paying it? Are you on top of it? Do you know what the law says about it? And if you don't, who is helping you make sure you don't fall into the arms of the law? Some businesses use consultants. Some call friends who are in that area of expertise. What we don't encourage is just sloth and ignorance. So you must find a way to understand what the government wants from your business and make sure that you are in line. We've talked about treasury management, how the CFO makes sure that there's always cash in the business, always making sure that the cash is properly allocated to different areas of the business, and make sure, like I think it was Innocent who talked about investing excess funds. So yes, those are some of the things that the CFO does. Fingertips, the CFO has the numbers of investment outlets so that he can put the money where they should be and get the money out when he needs it. CFO is thinking insurance, because if you lose your drugstore, you've lost a great part of your business. So the CFO knows that insurance is critical to the business, and the CFO must make sure that the insurance gets renewed on time, so that the fear of risk of fire, theft, or burglary is mitigated. The CFO makes sure there's no pilferage. The CFO makes sure that, like we say on the streets, you do not run the business street. So we have so many case scenarios where in business, so many atrocities have occurred, maybe by the workforce, or maybe by the system itself to fleece the business of its hard-earned revenue. So it is the job of the CFO to make sure that finance control is properly in place. What we call internal audit, internal risk, and internal control management to make sure that functions are structured in such a way that one person cannot complete a sale, one person cannot complete a procurement on his or her own. There must be high level of collusion before such a thing will happen. And the CFO is also thinking, even if there's collusion, what can I put, what trap can I keep within the business, within my business? You know your business more than I do. So you're the one that will know what kind of thing you can keep to make sure you discourage people from stealing. Some will keep a CCTV camera, but the staff will find a way around the CC camera. Some will show some fetish items in their shop so that the person working with them will be afraid of what can happen to them from Shango or from Ogun. So some people do all sorts of things. So, but okay, thanks for confirming. Absolutely, because it might impact on the storage of the drugs, right? Yeah. So that's what the CFO does on a regular basis, putting controls in place to make sure that the assets of the business are protected. The CFO is particular about pricing. How much should I charge? How much are others charging? Why are others charging what they are charging? How much did I buy? What other thing did I spend money on apart from what I did drug? If I had to come to drug stock to buy the drug, I have to add the cost of the product, the freight, which is how the travel, the cost of coming to drug stock and going back to my shop, any other cost. If I bought lacasera on the way, and you see, I wouldn't have bought that lacasera if I wasn't coming to buy physically from drug stock. It's all part of the costing that you need to put a price on in order to recoup your cost and earn a margin of profit. And the profit must always be in consideration of what other pharmacies are doing so that you don't stock drugs that are not being purchased because they are not price competitive. And like we talked about data is very critical in setting your price or determining your profit. And that data that you need is not just internal data, especially external data, what others are doing and how they are doing it. I would push up faster. We also have stock management. I know Pilometer is big on stock management, on drug stock management. So I'll leave that part for Pilometer. But I mean, in finance and in accounting, stock is very important because it's, like we said, it's the day-to-day cash, awaiting cash that the business sees. So that is very important for what the CFO does and continues to do. I don't know if we have any other highlights, or should we go on? Let's see, be sure the audience is with us.
Please confirm that you can still hear us. I hope you can, because this is a lot of gold that has been dropped. Yes, okay, we have confirmation that we are quite audible. And yeah, there is a question, but I think this is okay. What's the best approach to justify capital investments in healthcare settings? For example, new technology or pharmacy automation. So what's the best approach to justify capital investments in healthcare settings, like investing in new tech or investing in pharmacy automation, investing in new technology? How would you justify that?
So she's asking, how do I justify the money I bring into a healthcare business? Correct?
Yeah, the money that I put into maybe getting new technology or investing in automation, investing okay, we're in the age of AI, investing in AI. How do I justify that?
My first response, thinking like a CFO, will be value. You justify the investment by the value it's going to create. And we're talking about saving lives here. The most important resource on earth, a human life. So if an automation is going to make you serve the people, the populace better, you are going to make a healthier populace. You are going to reduce the lead time between somebody, the time I come to the hospital and the next time I come to the hospital, because I'm living a healthier life. If that investment is going to achieve that, then it's worth it 100%. So even beyond money, because it is the value that brings the money. And if a business owner focuses on just the money that that investment is going to bring by automation or by AI, there might be an initial rush for such a service because it's new and it's never been seen before. But after some time, it's almost like there's no purpose, there's no soul, and the service drops. But when it's value that is in the face of the customers, all they keep seeing is value without knowing that they are paying for it. Yeah. So we go on and we go straight into how the CFO implements all of that thinking. You know, the thinking is a lot. You're thinking revenue, you're thinking how to manage cost, you're thinking how to buy new assets, you're thinking how to manage the existing assets that you have, you're thinking of how you invest the excess fund you have, you're thinking of how you source funding at short notice, you're thinking of how you monitor and keep controls and management of every finance area of the business. You're thinking of survival first. Then after some time, you now start thinking of growth, stability, and you now start thinking of massive expansion. So that is where we are when the CFO keeps thinking and is now implementing all of that thinking. And in implementation, what the CFO does is setting up things. Structure and strategy, those are one of my two favorite words, structure and strategy. What the CFO starts with is a strategy, a finance strategy for the business. He needs to put that strategy in place, and the strategy must make sense to the average part of the team. It must make sense to even the security person, the janitor, that this is how this business is going to make money. For example, at drug stock, from my visit here, I can see that the security personnel knows his place in the overall structure of the organization. And I'm sure he understands that his role is very critical to what the business does. Because if drugs go out of this place without proper monitoring and control, then the business will be slack for it. So those are some of the finance systems that start from the CFO's thinking. So even the security man doesn't know how the level of thought that has gone into his role and why his role is the place that is given. The security men are not special in a glass cage like this and all that. But that's because the CFO has thought of the importance of that role to the finance system. So the CFO must set up that system. If he's not the one that set it up because he was recruited into the system, he must understand the system in detail. He must understand the entire process from start to finish. And must be able to, like we say, build contingencies into the system so that if there's any change, he can work around that change. The CFO, especially for smaller businesses, is expected to be very, very conversant with opportunities where he can source funding. He should be going for pitch. When we have all this, I give you example of the Tony Elumelu Foundation. The CFO of a small business should have every quarter at least 2 of these pitches to attend. And to be able to attend this pitch, you have to understand your business and your industry. So what it forces you to do is to go and learn and unlearn and build a proper business case that you can present to a third party and it will make sense. So that's what the CFO does, what she should be doing. The CFO should be going to investor meetings. The CFO should be sharing some of the ideas all the time. The CFO should be a storyteller because all the time you must be convincing people about the capacities that the business can bring, which will force them to put money into the business. How the CFO implements this thinking, we talked about cash flow management. And there are a lot of instances, like I said, where the CFO already knows, based on how much funding is available to this business now, this is how long we can survive. So in certain instances, you hear the CFO saying, with where we are now, if we don't rack up sales, we will have to let go of some staff by December. And that way everybody starts to put in more effort. Because the CFO has seen that based on the funding available to the business, based on the inability to receive external funding, and we just have to manage our internal financing. If we do not grow the internal financing, then we have to reduce the workforce. So these are some of the decisions, hard decisions the CFO has to take. He doesn't want to get people fired, but that is what the business may demand. But that data is what will help both the CFO, and as the CFO communicates that data to the rest of the team, everybody is able to work together to ensure survival of the business. And once the business has survived, the team can now start talking about growth. We can now understand the importance of growth to the business because the strategy and the structure has been well communicated to them. Absolutely. And then once you have stabilized, you now start to scale. I talked about looking outwards and providing services to customers who are not even within your jurisdiction. You talked about AI. You talked about automation. So these are some of the facilities that can help you generate revenue beyond your space. And once you're able to create that value, revenue goes up, internal financing goes up. You don't need a loan, you don't need equity, and then the business is robust. And we now go back to what Innocent said. You now have so much money, you have done all the investment, you're looking for where more investments. Absolutely. The CFO continues to do more. He continues to do the basic accounting. He keeps that record. He's passionate about that record because without the record, he can't do the budget. He can't do the forecast. He cannot do the market analysis. He can't do business development. So the CFO, keeping to the CFO is everything. The CFO, most of the time, is the business owner, is the HR man within small businesses and neighborhood pharmacies and stores. So what the CFO does is making sure that he recruits the right personnel for the stage or the life cycle that the business is within. So the business is still within the early stages or the smaller stages of its existence. And so the CFO is very particular about recruitment and the cost of recruitment. So that's what the CFO continues to do till the business scales up and is able to recruit someone else to do that thinking for him while he faces other strategic issues. The CFO will also do a lot of SWOT analysis. By that we mean the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that are available in the business. So the CFO is always thinking about the SWOT because in the SWOT, you will see what will bring revenue, reduce cost, have a maximized profit, and also be able to continue to scale up your business because you are looking at both the internal capacities and the external opportunities without avoiding the red flags because you would always have red flags in every stage of your business. So the CFO, while he's excited about making money, he's also looking at the risk that might be involved in making that money. Am I buying from the right source? It's not enough to be happy that you are selling and earning revenue because the drugs are cheaper than other competitors and you are charging the same price, meaning you have higher profit. But you might be buying that drug from Onitsha Underhead Bridge and you are not sure of the source. And in the long run, some of your customers die. And if that gets investigated and traced back to your shop, you can imagine the consequences. So the CFO is always looking at the red flag. The CFO might not even need to be a healthcare professional, but he needs to look at those areas that even the owner of the business might not consider. Do we have people in the audience wanting to contribute, or do we go on?
Yeah, I have a contribution. I think it's very apt that you mentioned sourcing because as a company, drugstore, one of the things that we always emphasize on is our sourcing and storage conditions because it's not just about the sourcing is one thing, ensuring that we get the genuine products, but also warehousing is important. because there are some medications that, you know, they lose efficacy if they're stored in the wrong temperature. So
Absolutely.
you also need to think about these things. Yeah, your procurement here is cheap and all of that, but then, you know, cheap is not always best. So
Yes.
it's a lot. It's good to also have that thinking. Yeah, thank you very much. We have questions coming left, right, and center. So maybe we'll just. So this session is supposed to be for, for for a specific amount of time. But since we have questions coming, I think we'll just take questions. And this is from Amaka. How can you get funding without bank guarantee?
How can you get funding without bank guarantee? Amaka, thank you very much. And Amaka, if you were the bank, would you just give anybody funding without guarantee? And what is guarantee? An assurance that you will be able to pay back. So the only way to get funding without bank guarantee, if you are not a regular customer of the bank, we're talking about customership here. If you're a regular customer of the bank, it's easy to get funding even without a guarantee, because that relationship is already a guarantee. They have already done the know your customer. But with smaller sized customers or people trying to source for funding, we always encourage you to avoid the bank, especially at the early stages of your business. And in today's modern world, we have other sources of funding available. I mentioned equity financing. It doesn't require a bank guarantee. It just requires you to understand where excess funding is available and which investor would not mind being a part owner of your business. We mentioned venture capital, and we gave the example of the Tony Elumelu Foundation and why small business owners should be going for pitches, because there's a lot of free money out there and people are looking for where to put it. But knowledge is power. You have to know where this is available before you can source it. I heard of this Casademore funding initiative, and I have a friend of mine who is a business owner called Sekamo, who recently won about over ₦1 billion in funding into his business during a pitch. So these are so many other ways to get funding while avoiding bank or the bank guarantee. Yes.
Thank you, Amaka. I hope that answered your question. So we can go on and then take other questions as we go.
So I think we're done with how the CFO implements his thinking. We ended it by saying the SWOT analysis is critical. You must look at what your internal capacities are, as well as what's available as opportunities out there. Now, we want to quickly just share the traits a CFO needs to have in order to do his work properly or her work properly, and to be a fit within whatever business organization that the CFO finds his or herself. And I like to differentiate between a small business and a medium-sized or a larger business when it comes to a CFO. And a CFO within a smaller business is expected to have character, to have audacity. That is, to be very audacious, to take no for to not take no for an answer. To follow the money, to follow the business trajectory to a logical end. So the small business CFO is not expected to wear a suit and tie. The small business CFO might actually be wearing lab coats, might be wearing the pharmaceutical coat. The small CFO might be wearing jeans and trainers, because apart from the business owner, he or she is now the jack of all trade. And that small CFO is supposed to be as flexible as possible in terms of skill base, in terms of creativity, in terms of being able to do the heavy lifting. It is that small CFO that will both collate the data, read the data, analyze the data, and now implement the use of the data. And it's still that individual who will now change from the lab coat or from the gyms and the trainers into suits when he's going for the pitch or when she's going for the pitch. And she's the best person to pitch because she did all of the heavy lifting. She understands the granular detail of the business. When the potential investors are asking the questions, you will be able to respond confidently. The small CFO must have character. I'll take it again. Because character means integrity. I will do the right thing even if nobody is watching. So the CFO will make sure that, yes, I've been entrusted with the financial resources of this business, but I will not do things that are illegal or tribal to the business. The small CFO is a strong storyteller. The small CFO, without knowing it, is supposed to be pitching the business everywhere he or she goes. And the only way to pitch a business is to have a full knowledge and understanding of the information at your fingertips. So that's what the small CFO does. He goes to church, finds himself in a setting, and is discussing his business and the key challenges and the opportunities that the business has. And before you know it, somebody has suggested investment or funding or partnership, alliance. So that's what the small CFO does. And most importantly, he's supposed to have fundraising skills. The small CFO can even use funds from the vendors. The small CFO can when he buy the products, can come up with very intelligent contractual terms and conditions that might not be available to other CFOs, because he's bringing, like I said earlier, he's bringing something little to the table, no matter how little. It might even be just hands-on information for his large-scale procurement center. So that's what the CFO in a small company will do. I talked about him being both the HR person, both the business owner. At times, he is even the leader. He's the one interacting with lawyers, interacting with regulatory agencies, as you would always see, for example, on Thursday mornings in Lagos State. Lagos State is known to carry out some form of environmental sanitation on Thursdays that ends at 10 o'clock. And in some areas, you see government officials, local government officials, going pharmacy to pharmacy or lab to lab, checking the documentation of those institutions, of those places. So it is that CFO, he also doubles as HR, will also respond to those issues. So it's important that you are hands-on, and it's important that you are knowledgeable about what is obtained. You don't have to be a lawyer, you don't have to be a tax expert, but you have to be aware and you have to interact positively. Now, for a medium-sized business, it's actually a little bit more different because the rules are compartmentalized, they're segregated. So the CFO can now focus on key tactical and strategic issues. So the CFO still continues to think money, to provide financial direction, but this time, someone else will be collating the data. Someone else will be in charge of providing that information to him, and then he can now use the information that is provided to him to be able to take the right decisions. Again, in a medium-sized business, the CFO is always thinking about how the decisions in the finance arm of the business affect every other arm of the business. Because while the CFO might be thinking of cutting costs in a particular area, it might be affecting quality in service delivery in another area. For example, I'm aware that there are certain consumables that laboratories need in order to provide their service. And I'm also aware that the quality of these consumables are graded. So the CFO might decide that let's buy a consumable that costs 400 naira per item, because that is what will support the business and the profit margin that has been budgeted. But maybe the service department, the quality review department, considers that every time we buy that one at 400 naira, we have to use 3 of it. Essentially, you have spent 1,200 naira on that item instead of buying one on the highest quality of 750, and we are sure that one is one. So in a medium-sized business, the CFO continues to do what the small CFO will do. Just that he has more assistance, but he has more responsibility because the risk and the numbers are more. So I'll take it away from here and let's hear from the others.
One, we are really short past time. I think we should just go over the slides and then take questions.
Okay.
So that we can move fast.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I think what is left of us is really most of what has been discussed in the past. We've discussed revenue, how the CFO continues to think about how to continue to generate revenue, how to make more money.
Yeah.
The CFO also knows that it is what he spends that would lead to the profit that is available for internal financing. So he must be very, very particular about what he spends, how he spends, and monitor the usage so that it can also impact on, on the cycle of spend, the revenue cycle and the cost cycle. So the revenue cycle is from when he buys it, when does money enter my bank account? Not I buy the drugs, or rather the customer buys the drugs and pays in 2 weeks' time. Meaning that 2 weeks, by the time he pays, if he bought the drugs at 100,000, the actual cost of the actual revenue you have collected in 2 weeks' time is no more 100,000, but maybe 97 or 96. So you monitor how you are bringing in the money, whether it's with a decoy, like Odumodu Black will say, or if you are direct to say, please, we have terms and conditions, you must pay by so day, or you continue to manage your customers. But it's important to make sure that the money comes in as quickly as possible. And the flip side of it is you must try to make sure that you don't pay your vendors as quickly as possible.
Okay, and this is rock stuff, so please pay us as quickly.
Okay, so pay us as quickly as possible. So the only reason why a CFO, because we are here to think like a CFO,
Yeah.
and it's going to help drug stock because now you can understand how most of your customers CFOs are thinking. So the CFO will only pay drug stock on time if drug stock ticks all of its boxes.
We always do.
How do you know? Okay, you do feedback.
Yes, of course.
Great. Excellent. And even from the trend of payments, you will know whether you're doing well. Because people pay on time, you will know that absolutely. So, but for a CFO, the only reason why you pay on time if this is getting absolute value for service. And if the customers too are washing those drugs and paying on time. So that way, he's able to pay you on time. But if you sell drugs to him that customers do not value, that they do not pay on time, he will also come back and negotiate with you not to pay on time. So it is for the CFO to look at all of these cost items and say, which one do I need to pay on time because it delivers the most value? Which one can I delay the payment because money today has investable future than money tomorrow? And the CFO is responsible for communicating the difference between profit and cash to other users of the business. Because it's easy for the stakeholders of a business to look at the business record, see profit, and throw a party. Not knowing that of that profit, say 100 million naira, only 20 million has been paid in cash. That means customers are still owing 80 million. But the profit is 100, 20 in cash, 80 in debt. So a CFO would understand that what you actually have is 20, and he will work with 20 and not 80, and be able to do the what we call the work back between profit and cash to understand what is bridging that gap, which is usually what we call receivables, the money we are expecting. Why are they not paying? To that question, why are my customers not paying? Are they still alive? If they are alive, why are they not paying? And if they have money, why are they not paying? Is it that they don't have money? Is it that they came to buy from me without having money? How did I allow them buy from me without having money? What did I check to make sure that absolutely? So this is what the CFO uses. Those are the tools that he uses. And if he goes to the costs that he incurs, they are typically fixed costs and variable costs. The fixed costs are the costs that he will incur and the service is over a long term, usually 1 year and above, while the variable costs are costs that he incurs on the go. So the CFO always needs to look at this cost in consideration with his cash. How much cash do I have available? Which cost can I defer? Which long run cost, which fixed cost can I pay now and enjoy the benefit over time based on the availability of cash? And which variable cost can I manage and work with the vendor in order to ensure that I'm essentially funding my business with the drugs? So if I've done my financial model and I see that a particular drug, I can sell it from the day I bring it to my shop, I can sell it in 5 days. So I've done that in my model based on what happens in that community. Maybe, for example, permit my French, if it's a Randy community and they always buy Postino, for example, you know that in five working days, if you buy 1 carton, 20 cartons of Postino, it will finish. So you've done that analysis to know that this is how I would buy. Then you can now engage your supplier to say, can I have 20 cartons and I will pay on day 7? Because you know that day 5, you will have all the money for the 20 cartons. And once you sign that deal, you are in fact, the supplier you are using the supplier's capital to do business because you have not taken out any outlay in order to purchase those drugs, but you are now paying the money for them and taking out your profit seamlessly. So imagine having that strategy across all your product lines, and you're only able to achieve that because you have what? The data. You have built the data and you're working on the data. We also know the importance of utilities, administrative costs that you cannot tie to the drug that you are selling, but are important in making sure the drugs are sold. But again, just like every other cost area, look at how you spend money and check if there's a better way to do it. I gave the example of the solar energy in comparison with buying fuel and buying diesel. Again, if you do the analysis with that line item, you can say in 2024, I spent 1 million naira on fuel and diesel, and I spent 1 million naira on electricity costs, which is a total of 2 million naira. I can now decide to say I want to do an investment of solar powered energy of 3.5 million naira, where I will not need NEPA or diesel, and that 3.5 million naira investment will last me for 5 years. Meaning that I have saved 10 million naira and spent 3.5 million naira and gained 6.5 million naira. Aside the other human involvement, charge the card, go and buy fuel. Where is the generator? We can call the generator man to service the gen. So the CFO has done that long run analysis and taken a decision. Yeah, we've talked about cash is king, so we can go on.
I think the next one is on inventory. Yeah,
inventory. I don't really say that I'm going to leave inventory to drug stock. Yes, but I mean, even for young baby accountants, inventory or stock as it's called, it's a very topical area of finance because stock or inventory is money in waiting. It's just money that is waiting to be converted. So strategies are important to make sure that your inventory is protected. I know Pilometer has all of those fancy stuff to show you which one is fast moving, which one is slow moving, which one is more profits, which one it might be slow moving, but more profits on a purchase, for example. Which one is susceptible to spoilage and reduction in potency expiration. So all of that analysis is very important for the CFO. So that when he sees those drugs that gives high earnings, the one that gives low earnings, the ones that are durable, undurable, he can take decisions to protect the assets of the business, because the drugs are the assets of the business. So there's some other strategy we call first in, first out. Absolutely. So those are some of the things that a CFO needs to know so that he can implement in the business to avoid overstocking, to avoid stock out. A typical example is I sit on the board of a medical and advisory team of a local medical and diagnostic center in my church. And one of the major challenges we faced at the start was overstocking. When we came on as a board, we realized that the hospital management had overstocked drugs. Some of them were even getting to point of expiration. Some of them, like you said, had started to lose potency. And it was important for us to now put in a what do we call it, a data management system, whereby we understand the use, how frequently those drugs are requested for, and then we do the stocking based on the information provided by the data management system. So those are some of the critical things that makes it important for the CFO to continue to look into stock, and you cannot go wrong with over-reviewing stock. Again, in third world countries like ours, it is not uncommon to have employees, to have staff who might pilfer stock, who might carry out some, unwholesome practices with when it comes to stock. We have the famous example of employees buying their own stock and putting into the pharmacy shelves, and the business owner wondering why the business is not moving, whereas they are selling your own stock and replacing it with their own, taking their margin, and in some cases replacing it with substandard stock. They are not buying from drug stock, they are buying from somewhere else. So, but the CFO has the responsibility to continue to monitor the stock area, to be able to identify these things and put controls in place to even discourage people from trying to attempt such practices. And we talked about setting prices. The CFO is always in the business of setting prices. And once he has set a price, he's also looking at what the market is doing so that he would know whether to provide a discount or to communicate an increase. But in most cases, my understanding that drugs, the pricing is not solely the factors that contribute to the pricing is just the CFO. There are a lot of external factors, especially if you have to source the drug from outside the country and some of the foreign exchange restrictions and challenges. Another one is the freight time, the time it will take the drugs to come into the country. So a CFO who knows his onions should know that he's dealing with not just numbers. The CFO of a healthcare business should know that first and foremost, you're dealing with lives. So your service has to be prompt and on time. So you must keep track of what your supplier is doing, when he has the drug available, why he does not have the drug, where else you can get the drug. And you should also understand the level of your own internal stocking of such drugs so that your loyal base customers are not disappointed. We talked about budgeting and forecasting. We cannot say enough of it. Forecasting and budgeting is trying to predict the future. And when you went to school and you decided to study pharmacy, you studied pharmacy, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
Here you are, a pharmacist. So you've predicted the future. You predicted the future while you were in school. So that is what the CFO tries to do with the forecast and the budget. He tries to predict how much the business is going to make. And he's going to show you how his prediction is going to work. Then he can now track his prediction in real time and know how to adjust his prediction. And the only reason he's adjusting his prediction is because of the realities. Because of if you did a budget and forecast in January of 2020, COVID would have adjusted that budget and forecast for you. For healthcare businesses, it would have taken the number up because there'll be more people buying drugs. But for some other type of businesses, it will take the number down, like physio, where people will not be able to move around. So that is what the CFO needs to continually do, use these tools to continue to drive accountability and profitability. Yeah.
Next one.
The CFO does a lot, as you can see. This is supposed to be a summary, but it's looking like the whole thing. Yes, we now have what we call the financial health trackers. In order to check your financial health, there are certain things you look at. Or rather, in order to check your health, there are certain things you look at. Your BMI, is it BMI you call it?
Yes, BMI.
I got it.
Check BMI, check your vitals,
blood pressure and all that, your sugar level, exactly. So this slide is more like checking your vitals and your BMI and your blood sugar. This is it, the financial health tracking system and the KPIs. The first is the profit and loss account. And easily the profit and loss account, or the way they call it these days, or the statement of comprehensive income, it's all jargon. What matters is the monies that come in and the monies that go out. A paper that shows the monies that come in and the monies that go out, and the profit that is left at the end of the business, or the loss that has been incurred at the end of the business. And naturally, what I like to describe the profit and loss account as, because the profit and loss account is a record of 1 year's activity, what you did in 1 year, how much money I made in 1 year, how much I spent in 1 year, and the balance. So if I cascade it to life, I would say the profit and loss account is all the good things that happened to me in 1 year minus all the bad things that happened to me in 1 year. Then, if at the end of that year, I'm in a net position, I'm in a positive position, it means I had a good year. Correct? So all the good things that happened to me in 1 year, I ate, I was not sick often, I was working, I had a healthy bank balance, my children are okay, my wife is okay, even if she's not okay, she will be all right. That's a joke. And so on and so forth. And all the bad things that happened to me, some of my assets broke down. I had to fix them, my car, my big gen and all that. I had to spend more because food prices went off. My son was sick. My daughter had a broken leg. I had to fix all of that. I faced a query in the office and they deducted 1% of my salary. All of those bad things, you aggregate it. The net is your net profit. So that's the same way we calculate it.
The good things are more than the bad things.
Absolutely. And if the bad things are more than the good things, what does that mean in life? It means that you are not just broke, you are almost broken. And that you actually need urgent 2K. That's what it means. If the bad things are more than the good things, it means that maybe the person is still in the hospital, still sick, and doesn't even have money for discharge. So which means you need internal financing. You need equity funding to get you out of the sick bed, get you back up and running for good things to start to happen to you, and hoping that you are strong enough for more good things to happen to you in that next year than bad things, which will give you a good profit. And that good profit is what you will use to help yourself in the next year, just in case you have more bad things happening to you than good things. That is why we save a portion of our income. Then we want to talk about the cash flow statement. And it's basic, as the name implies. It's just a document to show the cash, not how much you sold, not how much they are owing you, the actual cash that comes into the business and the actual cash that goes out of the business. Because in the previous example that we shared, you might have a sales of 100 million naira in a year, whereas they paid only 20 million worth of that 100, and you have 80 million as IOUs or receivables. And then you realize that in trying to keep the business running, you actually spent 40 million naira. cash. That means that you spent the entire 20 million that you made in the business and you had to borrow 20. Whereas you have 80 million with some people that they've not paid you. And in some instances, if that borrowing of 20 million is not coming from family, friends, or a very low interest source, you will be paying interest expense for your own money that you would have collected from your customers. You are now paying interest from somebody to be able to use part of it. So that's why cash flow management and the cash flow statement is very important, because the cash flow statement does not pretend to the business. It shows the business exactly how it is and forces the business to go and take decisions around getting the money in. Then just the way we describe the profit and loss account or the profit and loss statement, which is all the good things in a year and all the bad things. The balance sheet, here we say it is what you own versus what you owe, right? But I'll describe it naturally as every good thing that has happened to you since you were born versus every bad thing that has happened to you since you were born. Yes, to today, May the 28th, 2025. I'll take it again. Every good thing that has happened to you since you were born, compared with every bad thing that has happened to you since you were born, is what forms your balance sheet. So, since you were born, you have been accumulating assets. The first major asset you've accumulated as a person is your knowledge of pharmacy, your knowledge of the healthcare business and the healthcare industry. That's an asset. You also acquired other material assets. You also acquired goodwill, is an asset. Your social network, the people you know, and so on and so forth. Then, as a person, you also have some enemies. Some people don't like you and will do anything to bring you down, to bring your business down. That is some of the negatives from the time you were born. You may have some personal negative traits that do not edify your character.
How it's the business, those bad things.
Fantastic. So if, for example, you do not have a friendly disposition, you do not have a sociable disposition, and you are not able to interact regularly, and that is supposed to be your nature, year on year, every year, you will be losing opportunities around increasing your market share, getting in new customers, keeping the other older customers loyal, being able to do what they will ordinarily buy because you are a storyteller and you've been able to share some of the auxiliary products that come with the one they want to buy, and you keep going there on year, that every year it adds to who you are. But on the flip side of it, if you don't do all of those things and you lose all of those opportunities year on year, and you don't have enough person to continue to do internal financing, then your balance sheet will have more of the bad things that are happening to you over years compared to the good things that are happening to you over years. Because you're not selling regularly over years. You're not doing good over years. You are not, because you are not selling, you are not buying enough assets over years. And that's how you somebody who you graduated with. Some already had flyers, and you're wondering how they did it. Some are still struggling and looking up to you. You're wondering what's going on. It is the same trajectory. Everything that has happened to you up to that date. It's not just school, because after school, other things have been happening to different individuals. So it's how you are able to churn those things in and create value from them. So that's how you're able to build the balance sheet. That's how you're able to increase what you own. Because what you own, for example, for a young pharmacist or a young doctor, starts with, like I said, the great knowledge, and then with great first employment. So you now start owning practical knowledge. You now start owning an understanding of the business. You now start owning finance of your own to be able to buy certain assets of your own. A massive, massive asset. Is the biggest asset on a healthcare business owner's balance sheet. Because it's your knowledge that you will show off to potential customers that will make them a loyal customer base. It's your knowledge that will help you to avoid certain pitfalls in the business that can lead to extinction. So the balance sheet is very critical. And then we have key performance indicators that help us to monitor if we are stocking out or if we are overstocking, if customers are not paying for what they are buying, or if the pace at which the stock is moving is very slow, or if we are selling a lot, but the margin we are making, what we are selling does not cover our cost because we are not comparing the margin of sales to what we are spending. So I know that Kilometer does some of these things, but it's very, very important for a healthcare business owner to at least understand the rudimentary basis with which these things work. Understand what inventory turnover. That's understand it naturally. That it means if I buy today, when next will I go and buy because the one I bought before has finished? And you know that if you buy 100 and sell and you're able to buy 100 10 times in a year, that means you have bought and sold 1,000. But if you buy 50 and you buy 50 20 times, you've also bought 1,000 in a year. Then you have spent more trying to buy 20 times than trying to buy 10 times. But that depends on, like you said, the storage capacity, so that the drugs do not lose potency, so that there's no pilferage or theft, and all of those factors. So the CFO has looked at those factors. And the CFO is comparing those factors with the savings if he is able to buy more bulk. And the CFO has seen that the only reason I will buy in bulk is if I have people to buy it off me. That forces the CFO to take decisions around marketing, business development, because he needs to buy in bulk to save his cost, but he knows that he needs to keep it in a cool, dry place, which he has done. And the only missing link now is to be able to get sales. And finally, you need dashboards to make your life simple. Those who have studied accounting and finance in schools have already done the heavy lifting for us. So what we need to do now is just have very quick, informative data that can, with a touch of a button, show us very, very important areas of our business that we need to review and take decisions on. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we're rounding up now. What do we have next? Oh, tools, yes. This is the last slide. So tools for smarter management.
Yes, I mean, it doesn't come bigger than drug stock. Kilometer. Also be interested in having a look and seeing how it works, because in the area of finance and accounting, we have a lot of automated real-time trackers that track, assets, track liabilities, track receivables, payables. So it's exciting to know that we have a modern day, clone in the healthcare business. I used to be a consultant to the healthcare business in my time in PricewaterhouseCoopers, and I don't think we had such exciting stuff at that time. So it will be good to know more about Pilometer. But yes, what you can do as a small business, even before you get to the area of Pilometer, is your laptop. Your laptop can help smartest management. Your laptop is an opportunity for you to be able to keep all of your data in simple, limited to what do they call it? Cyber-based platforms. For example, we have Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel, and the PowerPoint. The Microsoft Word, as ordinary as it may look, is a very powerful tool because it helps you to prepare letters, prepare documents, prepare memos, prepare reports that you would use to communicate to other stakeholders of the business. It is the kind of document you want to use to prepare information for your workforce or to your customers. You can even use it to prepare invoice. You can use it to document some of the things we were asking from customer base. Excel templates. The Excel is, most of us know the Excel tool that comes with boxes, vertical and horizontal, where you can do a lot of mathematical calculations at the touch of a button. So we encourage healthcare business owners to get a mastery of these basic tools, the Word, the Excel, and the PowerPoint. When you want to go for the pitches, when you want to source funding, when you want to undertake business development, most of the time, it is very professional to go with a PowerPoint presentation. Just 2 or 3 pages that speaks to what your business is, what your business does, the opportunity available, and how your business intends to take advantage of that opportunity. It goes a long way to edify your business and make your business come across as a serious-minded one. So yes, these are some of the tools that you can use to manage some of the financial records and data that you need. You need a Word to get some of the data from your customers. When they come in, you can invoice them using it. You can also apply the Excel for mathematical-based calculations. You want to analyze your revenue. You want to analyze cost. You want to do some kind of financial modeling. Your Microsoft Excel is key for financial modeling. And then, like I said, the PowerPoint for presentations and stopgaps.
Thank you. I think that's about it. All right, so we have a lot of questions, and the good episodes that we had, I don't think there's time to, and you said it that journalists of us, there isn't time to share that. So maybe as we take questions, we'll be able to speak to that as we go.
Yes, absolutely.
But next we are going to, so thank you very much, Mr. Stanley. This has been so insightful.
I hope so.
Yes, it has. Thank you so much. And please, we'll appreciate if our audience, if members of the attendees can drop their feedback and, share how it has been so far. For me, I have been thoroughly enlightened in terms of finance. Like, I know where I can put my money in now. Yeah, so it's been a very delightful session for us. So please, attendees on the call, share how this has been, what you have learned so far, and how you plan to implement in your business, how you plan to take your financial health more seriously. So we are in the business of health, and we know that even as human beings, we look after other people, but also look after your business. Let us know how you plan to improve your financial health going forward, and if there are next steps that you will take personally, you can share that in the comments, in the chat box, or in the question and answer box. So we are going to move very quickly now. Like I mentioned earlier at the beginning of the call, Kilometer is supporting us, and then we are going to invite them now to do a very brief demo talking about the product that's software Kilometer and how healthcare providers can leverage Kilometer to optimize their finances and to get the benefits of their products or their systems of processes. So we have our Kilometer team on the call. Max, if you're there, you can share your screen now and let's kickstart what you have for us. I know that Kilometer is very useful for the profit and loss that you mentioned.
Absolutely.
Yeah, the feature of being able to identify products or the how much profit you get from each product, from each manufacturer, and so forth. Very useful for healthcare providers. We have gotten feedback from our clients that these features are very, very helpful or beneficial to their business health, and their businesses in its entirety. So Max, if you're ready, you can kickstart. So while you're setting up, I don't know if we are ready to go. Please let me know if you're ready. But I can just share the discounts. All right, so we are ready. So Max, let's go.
Yeah, thank you very much, Onye, for having me here. I want to say a big thank you to Onye for hosting yet another wonderful webinar. And also a very big thank you to Mr. Stanley for shedding a light on this mind-opening topic. Think like a CFO. So yeah, basically to jump into what Kilometer can do, I'll be touching on some demos that shows how you can manage customers record, patient interaction, customer messaging, predictive and forecasting analysis on Kilometer, and expense tracking also with some security activity measures that goes on Kilometer, the same as financial reports and the little AI automation we have running on Kilometer. So just to get started, for those that are new on or just joining this webinar for the first time, I'll just give a brief summary of what Kilometer is and what it does. So Kilometer is a cloud-based pharmacy operating system. So it helps you run, manage your business and your customers side by side efficiently. Yeah. So you can use Kilometer in making sales. You can use Kilometer in tracking your purchases from your suppliers and so many other fun features on Kilometer. So to get started, I'm going to navigate to the customer section on the Kilometer admin dashboard. Yeah, so on the customer section, you can see all the registered customers of the business are shown, the details are shown here. Then for a particular customer, you can just jump in and you can add a patient interaction for this customer. So patient interaction is just basically when this particular customer or patient visits the pharmacy at its till, and they are able to seek for consultation, and the pharmacist is able to add some of the interaction or some of the conversation that goes on between themselves and the customer. So the pharmacist attending to the customer tends to enter his or her name. Then the interaction title is basically what the customer complained about. So let's say you have a customer who's complaining about an headache or a stomach pain, you can just select that. And then whatever micro test that goes on in the pharmacy, let's say you check the height or the weight of the customer, you can enter that record over here. The blood sugar level, you can take down the records over here. And I'm going to show some use cases where all this information you are getting from the customer, how it is useful and beneficial to the business as a whole when it comes to customer messaging. So once all this is done, you can also see some of the presenting complaints, some of the diagnosis. All the diagnosis you can think of is already here. So you can just search for whatever the customer complains about and you can select that. Yeah, so you can select multiple diagnosis and symptoms on the system. So once this patient record is taken, the next thing to do is if you want to send out a message or reach out to any of your customers, you can use the messaging feature on Kilometer, and you can also send a message to all customers or specific clients. But for the purpose of this demo, I want us to pay attention to specific clients with some criteria. Because some of the criteria we have here, we have criteria like medical condition, age group, gender, and medical purchase. So for medical condition, if I select this as a criteria at which I want to send a message to my customers, I can click on condition and I'm seeing so many conditions on the system. I can just decide to select abdominal pain. And what the system does is it checks the data that I have entered for each of my customer and pull out those customers that I have interacted with that has this medical condition. And once it does that, I can decide to broadcast the message across to just this specific number of clients, yeah, that has shown signs of this medical condition and these symptoms. So we have that on Kilometer for customers. And moving on to predictive and forecasting on Kilometer. So under the overview page, I will navigate to product overview. So on the product overview of Kilometer, you get to see the summary of your inventory. And this is basically a summary showing all the inventory stock products for all locations. So I can decide to manage for just a particular location and I can just navigate to that. And now once I select for just that branch, I can see, okay, for just the Lekki branch of my pharmacy, I have a 3,669 products in stock. And out of this 3,669, I can see 3,000 of this stock are currently out of stock. And I'm also seeing 600 of the products are currently available in stock. I can see the purchase value of my stock, the sales value of my stock, and an estimated profit once I'm done selling this stock. I can see that from this glance. And also what I can also see here is the product stock alert. So the product stock alert is this predictive metric that you set on Pilometer to be able to track when a product is below a certain threshold at the pharmacy. So as soon as you've sold that product to that certain threshold, the system alerts you to let you know that, oh, you don't have more of this product in stock anymore. So it's time for you to repurchase and reorder that stock. And with Pilometer, we've been able to seamlessly integrate it in such a way that when you want to reorder the stock, you can just click to view the stock. And by clicking to view the stock, you can easily just navigate to your OS list and you can toggle on the button to show which of the products are currently available at drugstore for easy purchase. So from here, you've toggled that on and you can see some of the drugs that are currently out of stock. You can see the ones that are available at drugstore, and you can just enter the quantity you want to reorder. So let's say for Lona DS tablets, I can see I have just 2 left in stock and I need more of this in stock. So I can just enter the number for which I want to order. So I want to order 9 more of this in stock. And immediately it shows me this is the cost price, unit cost price. So if I'm buying 9, which means I'm getting a total of this amount. So I can also enter for this also. So once I'm done entering for all the particular product I want to repurchase, I can just quickly send a quotation and automatically we get the invoice for this particular order of your purchase. Now, going back to the product overview, I'm just going to set this to all. So setting this to all, you can also see on the screen here your fast selling products. So it also predicts your fast selling product based on the number of customers that have walked into your pharmacy to purchase that particular stock. So you can see we have here on the list, we have Pragamol paracetamol injection showing us a fast selling product. So you see showing you 215 quantity has been sold so far. And you can see paracetamol, also the tablets, you've sold 26 so far in just the month of May. You're seeing those products. And while it's showing you this, you're able to plan ahead of time to always have this such product in stock, since those are the products moving faster in your environment. Yeah. So one other thing it also shows you is your stock expiry alert. So ahead of time, Pilometer also alerts you 6 months ahead of time to let you know some of the products you have in stock or you're currently holding that will soon expire. So like you said, the FIFO method that we have is the first in product, first out. So this system alerts you and lets you know, okay, this product are soon to expire. It means you need to always shelf them at your pharmacy so you can sell them out or give them out at a discounted amount so you don't lose money in your business. Yeah. So this is it on forecasting and yeah, also restocking based on smart analysis. Then I'm also going to show you how the expense tracking work on Pilometer. So we're going to, for me to show you this, we have to navigate to the inventory section of Pilometer and go down to expenses. So yeah. So creating an expenses or managing an expense on Pilometer is very easy. The first thing you need to do, you need to create categories for your expenses. So you can have several categories like your electricity bill or your energy bill as a category, the salary you pay to staff as a category of your expenses. If you incur some delivery charges or you have some data subscription you run for your pharmacy internet connection on a monthly basis, you can all enter that category here. And once you've added a category for your expenses, the next thing now is to now record which business are you paying or taking down these expenses for. So to do that, you just click on add expense and you want to select the business location. So for pharmacies that are chain pharmacies that have more than one location, you want to select which particular branch is incurring these expenses or incurring this cost, right? So once you've selected that, you can also select the category, like what is this particular expense for? So let's say this is a salary expenses. I'll just put it here as salary. Then the expense is for what? So this is where you then select the person who you are paying the salary to. So I'm just going to select myself as an example, and the contacts for this, we're going to select the business contacts. Then what is the amount of the salary? So let's say the salary is 100,000. So you also have the option to toggle on a recurring payment. So if this expense is something that reoccurs maybe every month or every 3 months, you can always toggle this on. So you don't have to come back to always log in the expenses. Automatically, the system is smart enough to know that, oh, this particular expense reoccurs every month. So by the time it's the end of the month, I should log this in as an expense for this particular business, for this particular user. So that is what the system does. So to do that, you toggle on the recurring expenses and you just change this to the month. So I just put here 1. So it means every month, this particular expense of 100,000 get captured by the system. Yeah. So I can also select the date I want the expense to be captured. So I want it to be captured on the 30th of every month. And I can just select the time I want that to be captured also. I re-enter the amount over here. And also the payment method, which is very important for tracking how cash flows in your business. So how do you make this payment? Do you make it through transfer, or is it a credit you give out? So you just select the payment method, transfer. You can also drop a payment note to notify whoever is going to be viewing or reviewing these expenses that this is what this particular expense you're taking down is for on the system. So as soon as that is done and completed, what you can then do is now click on save, and the system automatically saves that expenses into your record. Yeah. Then moving on to the next one, which is all about security. So we spoke, Mr. Stanley spoke briefly on security, how you are able to secure your business. So Kilometer has a feature called activity log. So this activity log just gives you a summary of what each user in your business or in your system does on a daily basis while using your system. So if I come down to Maximilian as a user, so I can navigate to the sales information for this particular user. So it tells me the amount of product this particular user has already sold on the system. It can also tell me some of the activities this user carried out on the system. So yeah, so you can always filter this activity by dates and also by the time. So as you can see, it shows me here that on this certain day, this particular user created this particular sales. So security like this are in place to avoid theft in your business operations. Yeah. And we also have what we call the financial reports on Kilometer. So if I navigate down to reports, the profit and loss report on Kilometer, so you give it a minute to load up. Yeah. So the financial report on Kilometer basically just gives you this proper breakdown of how you started the month or how you started the year in your business and what has happened so far in that month or in that particular year in terms of monetary value. So as you can see here, it shows you the opening stock purchase value, which is basically your stock value in terms of purchase for that particular month. So it means at the time of, so at the top here, I can filter for each businesses. So I can decide to check them collectively and toggle it to all business, or I can decide to check them individually. So if I'm checking them individually and I select the Magodo branch, and if I select for a particular year, 2025, I can also select for a particular month in 2025. So let's say I want to just check for last month, which is April. So for my business, so yeah, so this gives me a detailed breakdown for my business branch in Magodo for the year of 2025 and the month of April. This is what my financial report says. It says at the month of April 2025 for the Magodo branch, I have a purchase value of stock of 33 million. And the closing purchase value is basically while you were ending that particular month, this was what you have left in your stock. So this will be carried over into the following months in terms of tracking your financial report. Then the sales value is basically showing, okay, by the time I sell what I have in stock using the sales pricing, this is the value of what I'm supposed to be making. And the closing value is basically the same as the purchase closing stock, what you're carrying into the following month. Now, the total sales for this particular month, you get to see it here. So for this particular month of April, the total sales we made was 21,000. So by the time you add this 21,000 back to your closing sales, it should give you your opening stock for that particular month. So it means we've only sold 21,800 out of the opening stock purchase value for the month of April. Now, coming down, if there are any expenses that was logged in for the month of April, it shows down under the total expense of the month. Then sales return, we can also see that, okay, a particular purchase was actually returned to the pharmacy, which means this will be added back to your purchase value in the pharmacy. So you also have purchase return, which is basically what you purchase from other suppliers that supplies your business. If you did any return, maybe return based on short-dated products or expired product, it also records down that particular scenario. And you also have stock adjustments. So if there are any stock you adjusted on the system, maybe based on expiry or damages, the system also captured that as a loss to the business under this particular field. Then you have shipping costs, sales shipping costs, it also captured that. Then discounts on sales. So if there are any discounts you applied to maybe a particular customer for sales, the system also captured that on the system. So you are able to know, oh, this was how I actually spent my business money during this month. It gives you that proper breakdown and also gives you the gross profits and the net profits for the month. So basically, I made a sales of 21,800 this month. So from the 21,800, what is my profit in this business, even after incurring a sales return of 800? So that is what we see as our net profit for the month of April, showing a 10,000, which means once I subtract 10,000 from the 21,800, the remaining balance I get should be added back to my business. So it gives you that proper breakdown. So we also have the profit breakdown showing up here. And we have profit breakdown by categories, by customers, by days, by manufacturers, and by products. So by categories of your business, it shows you which product category are actually making you the most profits in your business. So by customers, it shows you which customer is actually patronizing your business the most. And this will help you plan on what can you do to actually improve your sales for other customers. Are they product that these other customers are looking for or looking to purchase that they are not getting from your business? So this also gives you that insight. And you also have by product also. So you're able to see what products is actually making you the most profit. So if that is the product you want to keep procuring and you want to always make sure you have those kind of products in stock, or you want to run a special ad for that product, this actually gives you that insightful data. And last but not the least, we'll talk about the Dora AI, Dora Insights. So basically, at the end of each day of business, we have an AI on the system, which is called Dora, that sends you an email, which has a total summary of what all your business operation has done for the day. So it sends you that summary in your email on a daily basis. And yeah, that is how the AI automation works on Kilometer. So you're always aware and always informed on what to do, when to do it, and when to take action. Yeah, thank you very much. Over to you, Oyin.
Am I audible, please? Am I audible? Please just confirm that you can hear me. Can we hear me,
Hello?
please?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
All right, thank you very much for that, Max, for that very insightful demo on Kilometer. So it's very interesting to see everything that Kilometer can help you achieve, from operations to accounts to finance. It's a whole lot of benefits for the business. And like I said, for attendees on this call, oh yeah, right. So before I go into that, we got a couple of feedback that the screen wasn't very clear or very visible. That the words were not
Legible.
enough. So if you want, you can schedule a demo for Kilometer on this call. I think the link has been posted already. So just schedule a demo and you can have a more personalized interaction where you can ask your questions and have them answered in real time, online real time, like our presenter said. So you can just schedule a demo now before the link goes out so that you can, have this session just for yourself and you can ask your questions, have it bolder, and you can see everything that has been presented. So for those on this call, one of the good news and the things that Lumsa is offering is that we are giving a certain percentage discount. So usually kilometer goes for 650,000 naira, but for attendees on the call who want to purchase kilometer from, I think from now until next week I'm going to I'm going to let you know the time frame, but there is a discount and it goes for 500,000 naira for attendees on this call within a 2-week period. I'm going to confirm that shortly and then put that out. And then that's for the hardware and existing software. But for software alone, that usually goes for 450,000 naira. But for attendees on this call, it's 300,000 naira only. And I say only because, like Mr. Stanley said, the value versus the cost and the long-term benefits is something that you should also think about. So only for the attendees on the call. And as for existing kilometer users, I know that we have existing kilometer users on the call. Kilometer has a discount going on. So if you send your quotation, Max demoed a quotation where you can send quotations directly from Kilometer. So if you send your quotations for orders of 1.5 million naira and above via Kilometer, you get 2% off automatically. That's amazing. I mean, that's just free discount that I didn't even plan for. Just coming to you. So you can go and try that feature, order on Kilometer for orders above 1.5 million and above, and then you get a 2% discount. So yeah, we had a lot of questions that came in. I don't even know where to start from. But we have to just really move fast because we have really gone past the time. And I'll take it from, so what accounting software can be used for startup pharmaceutical company? So this is not specific. So startup pharmaceutical company, is it a manufacturing company, a wholesale company, or a retail company? But I know, and I can tell you for free that for retail or even wholesale companies, you can use Kilometer as your accounting software. I don't know if you have any other. Excel is another thing that the speaker mentioned.
Excel is more or less rudimentary, but when they talk of accounting software, perhaps they're talking of Oracle, Page, Sage, and all of that. I know Sage is quite user-friendly, but my first comment would be you need to understand the life of your business, understand what information technology needs your business requires before you invest in an accounting software, so that you don't purchase something that is not fit for purpose. So you consult your accountant or your tech expert to, first of all, give him the information relating to the life cycle of your business, what your business does, and then you can be guided as to the accounting package to use, especially to make sure that it is efficient and effective for your business.
So this question, what are the implications of IFRS 15, that's revenue from contract with customers? on your revenue recognition policies. IFRS 15.
That's very interesting because I'm surprised that a healthcare professional is discussing IFRS 15, the revenue recognition contract with customers. And like the word implies, contract is not over-the-counter purchases like you have in the typical. So I will be surprised to see small pharmacies or hospitals having long-term contracts. And when they talk of contracts in IFRS 15, they are referring to construction contracts. They're referring to project-related contracts. They are not talking about a contract agreement between you and I. They mean contracts of a long, large scale that is way over 1 year. So what IFRS 15 is trying to guide is how you account for revenues for contracts that are over 1 year. So for example, the building of the second Niger Bridge in the southeastern part of Nigeria, that contract took about 9 years to build. And if Julius Berger was paid 1 billion naira, how are they going to account for that 1 billion naira over the 9 years? So that's what IFRS 15 is going to guide you to be able to do.
That's from someone in the manufacturing setting, because like lots of we have manufacturers who purchase from.
Yeah.
So maybe this person, I'm thinking Oluwatimileyin is actually in the manufacturing space. So they have bigger. It's also healthcare business, so they have bigger terms, like bigger scale of clients. So
Yeah.
imagine someone has drug stock as a client, for example. They are
Customer.
yes, as a customer. So maybe that's what he means. That's the angle is coming from.
Okay, let's say his organization, let's call it Big Farm Co. is the one supplying to drug stock. And he has so many others that he supplies to. The question now is, what contract does he have with drug stock to manufacture drugs, right? That contract, is it a contract that stems over 1 year, or is it a contract whose terms and conditions has to do with procurement, supply, pricing, and payment? So most contracts in this industry will border on all these points I've raised, rather than trying to look at the contract to purchase drugs for drug stock over 5 years and wondering how to recognize revenue in each year. It will be much, much simple to do that because it's really about what was supplied for drug stock in a particular year and what was actually taken by them, So I'm still struggling to see how it will fit into the construction. So contracts from customers is more of the engineering industry, like I said, the construction industry, project management. Those are the guys that have to consider construction contracts, or rather, contracts for customers under IFRS 15.
So how do you manage and control costs in the pharmaceutical industry, particularly in R&D and manufacturing? So this is from the same person.
Oh.
How do you manage and control costs in the pharmaceutical industry, particularly in the research and development and in manufacturing? Research and development, so have
R&D.
the R&D, yes.
Yeah.
And in manufacturing.
Yeah.
So how do you manage costs control?
So manufacturing companies are known for R&D. It is manufacturing companies that usually spend a huge chunk of their resources doing research and development, because if you come up with a new product, a new drug, and depending on how potent and depending on how useful it is for human life, you can make as much revenue as possible. So how do you control the cost? It is the same principles we talked about for every other cost. The only difference in this expense is that it is qualitative in nature. That costs like laptop, like our jackets, you can see it, you can feel it, so you can estimate its cost. But with R&D, it's like a professor was locked up in a room for 2 weeks doing research, and his fee is $100,000. So it is qualitative rather than quantitative. That's research and development costs. So it is back to the point I made about value. We are paying for value. We are not paying because we just want to do research and development. We have identified an opportunity. There's an ailment that requires a new drug. Or you are in the manufacturing. You just need a drug for maybe, what do they call it? Improving your vitals, And you spent time in the lab trying to bring out this drug because from top executive to the CFO to the technical people, everybody agrees that there's an opportunity in this space. So we now agree that we want to commit money into pursuing that opportunity, which now becomes research and development. Pursuing the opportunity is now the research and development. Now, to control the cost of research and development is to say a forecast model again. This is what we want to achieve at the end of the day after we do this research and development. 1 billion. That is the model. That's what the model says. And we need to spend a modest 200 million if we don't want to be, what's the English word? We don't want to be a spendthrift. We will spend 500 million if we decide that when we're doing this R&D, we want to go for the best scientists and professors. Even though if we don't have the money, we can still go for the next level of scientists and professors and hope to still get the result. Raw material. How do I control the cost of raw material I use for R&D? If the raw material, because I need anthropopropozine, you know your terms, and it can only be found in components that you need to import into the country, and then you are importing for your R&D and you face exchange difference challenges, you can decide to identify which components or materials you can find locally that can substitute for the same results and be able to carry out your R&D at a cheaper cost. So it's really about looking at what you want to achieve, the value is going to create, which is the end game. Then the quality of the value you want to create. And then with the models, with the options that we talked about earlier, say, do I have enough fund to go for the highest level of cost? And what is the risk I'm trying to avoid by going for the highest level of cost? Or do I want to go for the medium position because I also have a medium cash outlay and the risk, I have assessed the risk of using a medium position and the risk is low, it will still give me that quality that the high one will give me. So that's how you use the CFO tools and terms again of financial modeling, of looking into the future, of cost management, of checking what specific cost does in terms of value, how smarter, source locally, source globally, the quality control, make sure that whatever I'm using doesn't impact the final result, and so on and so forth. Even like we talked about carriage and freight. So whatever it is you want to do for the R&D, why not identify all of it and make it available for the scientists at once? Rather than the scientist remember that he needs rubber band, you go and get rubber band. He remembers he needs torchlight, you go and get torchlight.
Now predicting every step of the process.
Yeah, and following through what you have earlier predicted, case by case, to be sure that there's a smarter and better way of doing it.
So by the same person, what are the key drivers of profitability in the pharmaceutical industry and how do you optimize them? I think already.
Yes, I would also again say character. Character. If you are a neighborhood pharmacy and you are known for character, you're known that you have original drugs, you're known that you are more important, you are more particular about the healthcare of the community rather than your profit margin. You have the best drugs, but you have the cheapest prices. You have friendly customer service. You have an engaging workforce that makes the customers who work in feel that they want to heal them of their sickness rather than collect their money. Then another equally important thing you need for profitability is the hands-on approach. You have to be in charge of what's happening top to bottom of your business, because you can be doing so well in some other areas, but you might have a weak link, which is milking all of the efforts you are making. So character, reputation, and a hands-on approach.
Dependent on like the character, the business
Now,
values, yes,
absolutely.
yeah, the values of business.
Absolutely.
All these core values that we see, they're not just for the sake of saying we have great core values. They're actually for you to
Make more money. Absolutely. You use it to make more money.
So the same person, what strategies do you use to mitigate financial risk, such as hedging or diversification? I think we already agreed.
Yes.
So all right, we have, what are those key data sets that one can use to develop a simple dashboard for small pharmacy to monitor growth?
Simple data set. I'm sure Pilometer has already given us some expo. Everything Pilometer showed during the demo is more or less what you need to have. But on a smaller, like they say, communicates to idiots, communicates to babies. So Pilometer has structured it in a way that is fit for purpose for all groups. Perhaps what we now need to do is find some way to meet the small business owner at the level of their comprehension and understanding, and what their facilities can be able to, do. So yes, you have how much you make every day. So how much you make every day is a key dashboard. How much you planned to make is a key dashboard, because if you have only how much you make every day, it does not point you to any action. But if you are comparing how much you make every day to how much you wanted to make every day, then it leads you to action. The same thing with the cost number. And like Pilometer's demo showed a breakdown of the cost into different segments. So you want to look at how much of each cost you are incurring every day, every week, every month, and how necessary it is to your business. And if you can do away with it, if there's a way to do away with it, then every day you call up that, like we said, Excel sheet that just shows what you do every day versus what you wanted to do every day, what you're spending every day versus what you wanted to spend every day, what long-term capital assets you wanted to buy within 6 months versus if you now have the internal financing to buy it within 6 months. So you see that all of the information is flowing into each other. So how much you want to make versus how much you made, how much you want to spend versus how much you spent, which now means how much you're expected to be profit versus how much is profit, which is what feeds into internal financing. What will help you be able to buy bulk things after you are able to stockpile or accumulate those profits or internal financing. Then you also decide what you want to spend money on, and how much it is, when you want to spend it versus if you actually spent money on that thing within the timeline you wanted to spend it, and within the cost with which you wanted to spend it. So all of that indices you put on the dashboard, every day you look at it, it tells you if you are far away from your goal or you're nearer to your goal. Thank you.
Simply put, in simple terms, get Pilometer.
You cannot get Pilometer now. Look for something that has Pilometer. Just pull out all those things on an Excel sheet and working with it till you're able to afford Pilometer.
And get Pilometer. All right, so but more seriously, I think that it is a lot easier to use something that's already preset than spending resources to do all of these dashboards, creating everything. But like Mr. Stanley said, we have better knowledge of our businesses than
Absolutely.
Anybody else. So you
Absolutely.
know exactly what you need and what you can get at this time.
Yes, and just to add, there's also some value in starting with the rudimentary types before you go on to Pilometer. And the value that there is that you're able to understand it from a granular perspective, from a very simple and basic perspective, to the extent that when you now go on Pilometer, you can even advise and profile recommendations to Pilometer on what they can do better in order to improve the user interface. Thank you.
This is what you said is very special, because for some of our clients that are using Kilometer now, they were co-creators with us.
Absolutely.
So we grew from where it was to where
it is now,
because we kept getting feedback. We kept co-creating with pharmacists, doctors. They kept telling us what to implement, what not to add. So it was a very beautiful experience. So that's actually very that's quite valuable.
That means you guys are thinking like a CFO.
Yes, I think that's it. So the last question that I have here is, can you please explain the difference or similarity between P&L and balance sheets in a very simple way for me?
I don't know if you were listening when we tried to make it as simple as possible. When we said the difference between the P&L, which is profit and loss, and balance sheet is that the P&L is 1 year. The balance sheet is more than 1 year. Exactly. Today, more than 1 year to date. The P&L is every good thing that happened to you in 1 year minus every bad thing that happened to you in 1 year. The balance sheet is every good thing that has happened to you from the beginning of your life to now versus every bad thing that has happened to you from the beginning of your life to now. Now, the balance sheet, the P&L is just one straight line. The balance sheet is two sides, the credit side and the debit side, the asset side and the liability side. If there's a difference between the asset side and the liability side in the balance sheet, like we said, the asset side is all the good things that have been happening to you since the beginning of your life. And the liability side is all the bad things that have been happening to you since the beginning of your life. Meaning that if the asset side is more than the liability side, it means that you have more good things that have happened to you, which means you have a positive position of your life. Net profit is P&L. In 1 year, what happened to you? The next good thing that happened to you in 1 year, that is the net profit. The next good thing that happened to you in 1 year, that next good thing that happened to you in 1 year, you take it into the balance sheet, because the balance sheet is recording your whole life, not just 1 year. So you're going to take that 1 year's good thing, put in the balance sheet. It's an asset. In addition to all the former assets you used to have. And if all those good things are bigger than the bad things that have been happening to you since the beginning of your life to date, you will be in a positive balance sheet position. So, P&L, 1 year, that happens good and bad in 1 year. Balance sheet, more than 1 year to date, everything that good and bad that happens to you over the course of your life. I think that's the simplest way I can put it.
That's very simply put. Thank you very much, Mr. Stanley Ezekobe. It's been a thoroughly insightful, and it's been after this, do you even need an MBA? I don't know. No, I mean you can just get a certificate. But jokes aside, this has been quite enlightening and insightful. So thank you very much. Thank you. Yes.
Since I see that Kilometer is giving a discount for the product, I would also, as part of the after service from this session to participants on the call, I'm happy to provide free consulting services to any participants on this call for the next 60 days. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So there are lots of participants. Anybody interested at all, you can just send them to your way.
Just reach out to you.
Yeah.
Then you send the details to me, and I'll be sure that they're from you.
Great.
Yeah.
This is amazing. Thank you very much, Mr. Stanley.
You're welcome.
So, I mean, you heard it for yourselves. For all of the participants, we have a free consultation session with the group head of tax at Nest Oil. So come with your problems.
Absolutely.
Come with everything, your questions, and Thank you so much. This is really amazing. And again, from Drugs of Learning, for attendees of all three webinars, you're going to get a toolkit. You're going to get the masterclass badge to showcase that you have gotten all of these skills. You are getting a health growth checklist. So the health growth checklist is available for members of the attendees of two of the master classes. Same with the slides from all three master classes and a profitable patient first practice, courtesy of Drugs of Learning. That is in addition to the discounts, the printer discount that you mentioned earlier, and the free consultation session that Mr. Stanley has just provided for us. This has been amazing. Thank you very much to everyone who has stayed on the call until now. So this is the second edition. Next month we'll have the third and the last edition, and the topic for next month is the business of people. So we are going to go into HR. Last month we talked about the processes, operational efficiency. This month we are talking about, or we've talked about the finances. So we are targeting every aspect of the healthcare business that you need to really pay attention to. And one part that we noticed that healthcare providers, particularly small scale businesses, don't pay attention to is the people, your human resources. So we are going to really delve into that next month. And I think it's already on the screen. So making the shift to purpose-driven HR in healthcare. So you can register ahead and secure your seat, secure your slots. And of course, we'll be happy to share our speakers, unveil our speaker when it's time, as as our usual practice. Thank you once again for joining this session. It's been so amazing, so insightful, and we look forward to having you on the call next month. And until then, check your financial health, practice everything that we have talked about today that you have learned, put it into practice, because that is really the most important part of joining the session.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much. And we'll see you next month.